have Cheryl Langdon Orr, the former chair of the ALAC, the At-Large Advisory Committee, and she was the ALAC chair from October 2007 to December 2010. So Cheryl, you are one of the most seasoned members in the ICANN community. Could you tell us why At-Large was created?
Certainly. It was a product of a process that occurred in and around 2000, where ICANN took a look at the way the voice of the internet end user and individual domain name registrant was being brought to the table, and for a number of reasons, which we needn't go into, but there's plenty of documents on our wiki should people be interested to look, it was decided that we would form at that stage an interim at-large advisory committee, which could act as an organised conduit to bring the voice of the wider, in fact billions of people whose interests we have to act in the best interest of, and bring that voice to ICANN and advice to the board, the support organisations, and be fully engaged in the policy development processes that go on. To help that work effectively, we needed to have nodes or touch points out in the furthest edges of community that we could get. And so the at-large structures model came into being. Now, at-large structures are entities which are demonstrably acting in the best interests of consumers and end users and internet end users, individual domain name registrants within their country and region. And there's an accreditation process that makes sure we're working with bona fide organisations and that what they're saying about the reach they have in perhaps their own country is actually testable. And then they become ICANN accredited at-large structures, or shorthand ALSs. We moved from a group of founding ALSs who were to feed directly into the At-Large Advisory Committee with their information. Of course, the At-Large Advisory Committee can seek edge information by reaching out to those ALSs. There was probably a few years where we had a trickle of fairly peak body and well-known organisations. Some of them were Internet Society chapters who came on board as at-large structures. And as that grew, it was recognised that the geographic diversity that we needed to be sought after and managed. So we created a regional structure whereby the at-large structures in geographic regions that ICANN uses were clustered together, and we put in a sort of a middle layer to facilitate and enable communication and information exchange, and that's called our regional at-large organisation. So we started off with a two-tier approach, and we've come towards a three-tier approach. That's operated effectively certainly since around 2005-06. We found that the importance and activities of the regional at-large organisation in each of the geographic regions is growing and changing, and they're becoming much more critical points of information exchange than we had even hoped in the beginning. And so we're all going through a review at this stage where in the next 12 to 18 months we'll have had an external look at how this is all working, and we're hoping that we might even have a smoother, more effective model. But right now we have 200 and climbing at-large structures. We have 5 geographic regions, and we have the 15-person at-large advisory committee. If I can just give you one more piece of important information about that. The 15-person at-large advisory committee is a very unique and balanced thing in ICANN because we have 3 sitting members from each of the 5 geographic regions. 2 of those members are now appointed by these regional at-large organisations. They could appoint someone who's not a member, but they make the appointment. The 3rd person in each of these geographic regions is appointed by something called the nominating committee. And the nominating committee, which I'd encourage people to go and learn more about, they've got their own website and they do vital work for ICANN, put into place a number of people in a number of parts of ICANN, including the ICANN board, but for us they put the 3rd person in for each of those regions, and that's bringing a little bit like an independent director to a board table. That sort of balance, that sort of diversity, unique, wonderful and exciting to work with.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that insight. So we also know there are many other groups in ICANN. How does at-large differ from other groups?
Oh, well, we do and we don't in a number of ways. There are a number of at-large structures and indeed individuals, because the regions will take members of an individual status as well, who may be involved in other parts of ICANN or may be involved in as a member or an active participant in other organisations that belong to other parts of ICANN. So there is often a crossover. But what is specifically the difference point with us is, as we act in the interests of internet users, both those that are connected and those that are yet to connect, our view is not restricted to either the country code space or the generic top-level space. Our involvement, our role, is to be ICANN-wide. All of the others you'll find quite necessarily and quite effectively work within a particular focus. So they may work within the GNSO as a constituency within the GNSO. But we have our mandate. We're an advisory committee to the ICANN board, but our role is to have impact and influence and be part of the process of developing policies across the board.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, for your time and valuable insights. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.